Welcome, Midlife Maven. If this is your first episode tuning into our podcast, we are thrilled you found us. And we highly recommend starting this particular journey with us at the very beginning. You see, we have designed this season specifically to guide you step by step to rediscovering your purpose and passions in order to fully blossom as a maven in your midlife. Therefore, we encourage you to pause right here and hop back to episode 1 so you can follow the progressive roadmap we have created just for you over the coming shows. Rest assured, the insights and aha moments in every episode will compound to help you take ownership of writing your next chapter. Simply search for Midlife at the Mailbox to start at our origin story, or click on the very first episode of Season 3 under our podcast name. Get ready to transform how you approach your midlife and beyond.
If not now, when? Right? In midlife, something profound awakens within. Some may dismiss it as the nefarious midlife crisis, but a lot of us might say it's a yearning for a feeling of like vitality, right? We talk a lot about that. We discuss the topic at length with our clients. We've talked about it in previous podcasts. We talk about it on the phone, right? A lot of the time. And it's really about finding your why, right? What makes you get up in the morning? What gives you energy? What is your purpose here, while you're here on this earth? And we bring it up season after season. And why is that, right? Why? It's a question that, we often ask ourselves because it is so important to know your why as you embark on any new journey, personally or professionally.
So if not now, when? This can also be tied back to when Denyse asked me to start this podcast. As the yes friend, I totally agreed. And really, we went months and months and then, of like, what should we do? What should we talk about? What should we do? What should we talk about? And then off we went on this mission of what we discuss and when and how we'd make the show happen.
Yeah, and 3 years later, here we are. And if you're a seasoned listener, you know that I also am a self-help book aficionado. I used to be in the closet, but now I'm fully out because I've shared this at the last women's conference that I spoke, and now I'm sharing it with all of you here on the Mailbox. And, if you're here and you've been here for a while, you know that I'm an optimist, and I love to hear people speak about leadership and just fulfilling purpose. And my latest really, a person I'm really excited to be following is the optimist and leadership expert, Simon Sinek. He's best known for popularizing the concept of why in business with his influential TED Talk. I think last time I counted, it was over 65, or not I counted, but
every single
last time YouTube or TED Talk counted, it was 65 million views since, over 10 years ago. And he has the best-selling book the best-selling book called Start With Your Why and the Infinite Game. And I came across him last year when I was preparing for my own speaking opportunity. If you listen to the first episode, you'll know I was selected to speak at the Central California Women's Conference in Fresno, California. And I was preparing for this debut. I had a lot of ideas of what I could talk about for a whole hour. And you all know me here. I had no trouble talking and wasn't afraid of getting in front of a crowd. However, I wanted the content to be meaningful. And I wanted to really encompass and encapsulate the podcast, my coaching and my clients, and really just personal anecdotes of what, I come across in midlife, what my friends come across in midlife. And so I went back to the basics and I learned more about finding your why. And what was my why for this discussion? Well, I was an expert, while I was an expert in coaching, career development, and resumes and LinkedIn, I knew I could bring that to the table and emulate that to thousands of women. But really that wasn't enough, right? I wanted to talk about midlife because that is hard. Right?
It is hard.
You can teach someone to redo their resume or upgrade their profile on LinkedIn or how to interview with, different strategies. But figuring out and really trying to master this middle third of your life, really, if you kind of think about midlife as 3/3, each 1/3, you're, 0 to 30 being, or 0 to 25 or so being the first third of your life, that youth and adolescence and later adolescence. And then the second third of your life is this midlife, middle third, and then the last third being your later life. And so we wanted to put these learnings into easy, actionable lessons that men and women could really, or anyone for that matter, could use to refocus their life, figure out what gives you energy versus what depletes you, and really how to be intentional with how you spend your time.
So, one of the things too, Denyse, that when you talk about energy and vitality and feeling like a sense of purpose, think about us like today as we were getting ready to come and do our recording. Neither one of us would ever, very rarely be out of the house unless I've got like hockey or like you've got like a school function or something with your kids. Like, we're not ones to like have a full face of makeup, like out the door. Like, we were out at like 8:30. We set our alarms. We were like up, we were ready to go. We were in our clothes for the day, albeit our sneakers to like walk. We kind of felt like, city. We like joked as we were walking, like in a small town, but we're like big city girls, like cue every Hallmark movie. But it just truly shows like, even though we got here and we were still kind of like working on what we wanted to fully bring to the table today in this conversation, like it just shows the vitality and just the excitement that we have around this piece that we've built within our lives and how exciting, it is for us.
And it's truly full circle. It's our dangling carrot, right?
It is our dangling carrot.
In the first season, we talked about that. And that was pretty raw at the time. We didn't really know what that was. But that's also finding your why, right? This is our why right now. No one's knocking on our door. No one this morning, was going to miss us if we weren't, showered, shampooed, and shined and looking our best, or that we hadn't prepped before, but we crammed it all in when we could have probably been enjoying a little bit more. But that's okay, because this gives us more energy than probably spending an hour at Every Eve, even though I love Every Eve. We'll get there tomorrow. But you know what I mean? This does give us purpose, and this is why we're here. We talked about it in that first episode, but we kept coming back to this for a reason, and we thank you all for listening, because this also, your feedback and encouragement gives us a lot of purpose, and so we thank you for that. And
we love it.
Yeah, but that's absolutely true, Amy, and it's a nice parallel. I hadn't thought about that, but you're absolutely right.
As I was sitting here and like listening, I was like, wait, I definitely need to talk about that, because it definitely was a moment this morning that was, This is our why. This is our why. Like, we are not like, Denyse like wants to try to be like an early morning person. As my husband drove me to the airport yesterday at 5:30, I was like, oh my God, there's like a world outside of like 7 a.m. Like it's like very hard for me to fathom. But at the end of the day, like people get a lot of shit done before.
Well, this gives us energy.
It gave us a lot of energy, and like we're roaring, we're ready to go, and we're powering through with our episodes. And so when it came time for planning for season 3, I thought, let's bring those steps. I said, one of the pieces that I always share with my clients in terms of like creating content is we don't always have to reinvent the wheel. So we actually, Denyse did all of the work for her presentation, but I played a little bit of a role in some editing and some back and forth conversation and listening in as she like presented it to me over Zoom. And so there was some feedback, and I really thought like, this is our podcast. Like, this is what we talk about. This is what we preach. This is, what we'd like to share and discuss. And so I really felt like it would make a really great opportunity for us to utilize what she had put together and not recreate the wheel for this season, and just expand on it and really talk about how, we've almost gone through, not almost, but how we have gone through these steps in various aspects of our business and kind of figuring out what was next.
Yeah, so we're giving you guys the best of the best. We've kind of done it in different iterations, and also our clients, right? We found that this is what works, or we find that this is the best that we know of the best of this time and this iteration. So that's how we built this methodology. Amy's being a little modest. She listened to me present this hour speech at least twice. She was my partner. I embarked on her in finding your why. We're going to learn how in a little bit. She was the first call I made. I said, will you be my my partner in this partner exercise. We're going to talk to you and share
Remember
with you about.
the yes friend. Of
Yes,
course I will
and
help
she
you.
also, with her graphic abilities, created the Midlife Maven Guide, which, good news, you didn't have to join the Fresno Women's Conference to get that guide. We are giving you your own guide. And this will help to be a tangible resource for you to follow along in our podcast this season, and also just in general, share it with a friend.
Yeah.
It's really got some good information.
So in our show notes and at the end of the episode, we'll tell you where you can find that guide.
Right. And so, you might think of finding your why, and hearing that sounds a little touchy-feely, right? It might be a little too touchy-feely or esoteric for Amy, right? Sometimes I side on the I side a little bit more with like feeling some of that, kumbaya. But like Coldplay says, this whole point of finding your why is going back to the start, right?
Yep.
And we can start to uncover your why with origin stories. And this is based on, like I said, Simon Sinek. I did not create this piece of the methodology, but I'm you starting with this is really is something we think is important, because a lot of times people will come to us like, I want to get on social media, right? Or I need to put my business on social media.
Or I need a website.
Or someone will come to me and say, I need to revamp my resume. Or I want to make a big career change. I want to do X and now I want to do Y. And, and I'll say, great, especially on the resume. Great. But you know what? We got to do a little thinking work. We
need to go back.
Yeah, we need to start a little bit before. There needs to be a little bit of internal work, or some pensive work to be done before we start to do the writing or the promoting. And so this is where these formative stories come about. And it's not just a way to shoot the breeze. This is really important, because these formative stories are important because they really can find themes in these things, and really some inner joy and inner happiness that maybe you hadn't thought of. So part of this method in finding your why is thinking about these stories from your past. And if you have trouble getting started, I like to prompt my clients, and I prompted the attendees at the conference.
She's prompted me.
Yeah, to say, what did you like to do in the 5th grade? Okay. A lot of people by the 5th grade, especially in our generations, more in the midlife generation, the 5th grade, the world hadn't creeped in yet. Thank God there was no internet when we were in the 5th grade. But, most children haven't started adolescence, or if they are, they're pre-adolescents, and they really haven't, there isn't as much of the peer pressure culture at that point yet. And so what were you like? What did you do in the 5th grade, right? And so that's, just kind of the first method of doing that. So I'll share a little bit of my story, a formative story of mine. I shared this at the conference too. But in the 5th grade, I was in my classroom. My teacher was a woman named, my 5th grade teacher was Mrs. Rachel Artenian. Hi, Mrs. Artenian.
Denyse loves the shout outs.
I dedicated my master's thesis to her. But each morning of our homework was to read the newspaper, the physical newspaper. So I was reading the Fresno Bee, and I would bring that current event to class, whether I wrote it down or cut the article physically out of the newspaper. And then everyone in the class would do that. That was part of our daily homework. And we would vote on a current event of the day. And she added it to this bulletin board across the class. And it was just so exciting if your current event was chosen. And so that just got me into loving the idea of studying politics and how the world worked and how business worked, because we not just covered, the current events weren't always about just, different political events. It could be about business or whatever that looked like. And so I just that just enamored me from that day to start learning about the world and reading, when you can, reading media about what that is. And so that's instilled in me forever. And, today I ultimately still do that, right? Part of my job as a career coach and career transition is to learn about that world of work. So I'm super interested in how people choose their careers and connect with those people, right? We talked about Scotty Scottsdale last night. Scotty Scottsdale is a gentleman who has a golf cart transportation business here in downtown Scottsdale. And we had so much fun learning about how he got to where he was. And
we actually, he happened to be, after he dropped us off for our last stop, he was sitting outside of our hotel when we came back. And as Denyse and I were walking around the city and we were kind of like chatting, we were like, like the one thing that we really didn't do is like, we were really curious about like, what was Scotty Scottsdale's like story? Mm-hmm. And, in our previous seasons, we've talked about telling your story, and, he filled us in. Like when he was 25, he had a pharmacy, and then he sold his pharmacy, and then it just like went on. And I'm not going to go into Scotty Scottsdale's like story, but it was just really interesting as a 25-year-old to like have this business and like where he is in his midlife today, and like all of the different pieces that have led to his journey to, build that up. And I think it's so true, even hearing Denyse about your conversation with what you did with your school, because that led to some early pieces. You worked for, you did some not government, but
I majored in political science in school, international relations in college, and my BA. At one point I thought I wanted to join the State Department. I took the State Department exam, but couldn't handle DC. And but yeah, I've always, she was a formative figure in my life and a mentor, whether she knew it or not. But I dedicated my thesis to her because she inspired me. She was also a woman who didn't come from education originally, and so that was inspiring to me as well. But that's just an example of a formative story.
Yep.
And so if I were, that was one of the stories that Amy and I shared together as we did this exercise. And so now I've shared my story, and let's hear Amy's story. I know she's got.
Yep. So I have a story. I have a story for everything. Well, and we were sitting and we were working on what we wanted to talk about and what like a formative story would be. And Denyse was kind of prompting me. She's like, what did you do? The fifth grade, and what did you play? And I was just kind of like thinking back that when I was growing up, like I played a lot of school, right? We, remember before the internet, before like we actually had to like, get creative with the things that we were doing in our time. And I had my mother was a teacher. I had a chalkboard in the basement. She would bring me home things from school that I could use. And, I taught school to my little sister or whomever, this is what we did. And when it came time for college, everybody, and I was like trying to figure out like what was next, everybody was like, Amy, you should be a teacher. You'd be a great teacher. Like, I love children. I love being around them. I it brings me so much joy. And so I was like, okay, great. Like, I didn't know what else I wanted to do. So like being a teacher just seemed like an easy thing. So not easy, but and just okay.
It's not easy, teacher.
It's not easy, teacher. But like an easy direction that I could do within college. So I went, I did that. I did all the coursework. I went and I did my field work, and I was in a second grade classroom, and after I was done with that, I was like, nope, I do not want to be a teacher. At the college, Lake Forest, that I went to, I had to double major. I had in communications, and so I had a fallback in my communications degree, which I clearly use every single day. But it's funny, like where I'm at today, it's a total like full circle, because while I recognize that being a classroom teacher for young minds was not the direction that I wanted to go. The education piece hasn't left, because in my coaching, I'm educating every single day through my I have like a group coaching that I do once a month, Amplify Second Friday, where I teach a certain concept on marketing. So I'm constantly
your Glenview Public Library.
Yep.
She's in person.
Yep. I've taught a class on
Illinois.
Yeah, I've taught a class on how to podcast, and like so you want to start a podcast, like the things that you need to do, and I really enjoy that. I really enjoy getting up in front of a crowd. And I mean, my crowds are not like huge, but a couple dozen people typically, and I enjoy that, and it brings a lot of joy and vitality to me, and so these are, you've got this like formative story, right, of being a teacher or wanting to be a teacher back when you're small to where we are today, and so I think that's a very helpful why in determining what it is that I see for myself in this next in this next phase, whether it's for the full midlife or whether it's just for, a time. And then even our podcast is super educational, right? We're able to educate about, here we are educating on finding your why and sharing, and why is it so important, to uncovering that part of your journey.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and today's storytelling is just the start, Mailbox. We encourage you really to read Simon's book, Finding Your Why, or Starting with Why, any of his books, or just watch his TED Talk. It's 18 minutes on on YouTube. Check it out. Simon Sinek. You'll find it. Or just complete the exercise in its entirety, right? You'll find that the exercise, just to give you a little preview, the exercise in the book is that you find a partner, accountability partner, someone that you know but not know too well. So I broke a little bit of the rules because I didn't know Amy well, but I was preparing this for my speaking opportunity, so time is of the essence. But it shouldn't be someone you know that well, because that person knows you, might know those stories, and might come with a little bit of bias. So try to find someone you trust but not know, and know but not too well. And then you yourself are going to sit and brainstorm 10 stories, formative stories, 10 origin stories, 10 just like the one I had in your life. And they do not all have to be happy success stories. So I just told you something that was happy. However, it could be something that didn't work out, right? And there are lessons that are learned in that, right? There could be, it could be a failure of yours, but it was really formative and it has affected you, whatever that looks like. So you'd write down the 10 stories, and your partner would do the same, write down their 10 stories. Then you'd get together and commit to probably 2 hours of time, quiet, where you both can share, trust another person to be confidential, and just share your stories. And then while you're sharing, that person is writing down themes, right? There's a facts column and then the meaning column. Then that person should have, a notepad, just be jotting down what the facts are, right? And the facts for mine was 5th grade teacher, like to read the newspaper. But the meaning or the theme that was coming out of that was sharing information, learning about, interested in business and work, the world of work, how people decide on careers, all those things, right? That now are a major part of my life. So then that you'll switch, and the other person will do you and listen to yours, and vice versa. And then you'll have a lot of findings, and it'll be interesting to hear what that other person hears.
Yeah.
And then when you do that, you kind of walk away with a couple of themes or trends. And so while that might sound like a big undertaking, it's not, but here at the Mailbox, we're all about help, right? So here we are, we're going to get you started, because support in midlife is what most of us are yearning for, right? We just need a little bit of help, just a little. We don't need a hand holding.
We sometimes need that accountability friend.
Yeah. So we're going to help you. We're going to help you take that first step to finding your why and becoming the Maven of your midlife. And I have a warning. This step is not easy. The step is hard. It can take a while. However, it is monumental in your progression to becoming that Maven of your midlife, and it will help everything be easier down the way, because finding out your why or your purpose, what gets you up in the morning, what gets you going, what gives you energy is so vital. Having that purpose, I can't explain enough. So we also want to help you with a guide, because we're really in this for helping you. So here's the first step. We want you to visit our website, midlifeatthemailbox.com, and check out our free downloads. Here you will clearly see an area where it'll say download and grab the Maven guide, okay? Or on social, if you want to, or any of our socials, at midlifeatthemailbox on Instagram, at Denyse Rabbat on Instagram for myself, or at
Amplify by A2.
Amplify by A2. You can comment on any of our posts with the word guide, and we will share that download directly with you. But just to give you a little preview in case you're like, I don't know if I'm into this guide, here is how it's starting. So the guide is going to be broken up into steps of each page is a step. And we want you in this first step to write down, just jot down 1 to 2 important life stories or origin stories that you're comfortable sharing with a partner. Just jot them down. Just the time I went to camp and didn't write my mom a letter, right? and write a second one. And then when you do that, maybe jot down a couple of accountability partners that you might consider. And that's all you need to do to start. Because just making that invisible thought visible can really be powerful. Can really be powerful.
It's out in the universe.
Yeah, and if you do need more help with finding your why in your career, you can call me or, start to follow me on LinkedIn or on Instagram for tips. Or if you're looking to find your why in your business or your brand or social media, Amy's your girl. So Amplified by A2. So check it out. And I'll kind of leave you with this last anecdote. I said Brooke Shields, who was just a person in midlife who's, I think, inspirational for a lot of us, said in her keynote speech before, at the Central California Women's Conference that I was at, she said, be with people that can hear our voice or hear your voice louder than you can. So I encourage you and implore you to do that. It can be life-changing and so much fun. After now, see you back at the mailbox for next time.
Bye.